A Better Route Chapter 104 Kankuro, Tenten, Shikamaru and Temari were talking on Sasori, with Kankuro helping Shikamaru with strategies to take on Sasori since he knew a ton about puppets while Tenten and Temari tried to keep him at a distance with their ranged attacks. Sasori was really wishing he'd had his old puppet armor and the third Kazekage puppet with him. Thanks to that damn Hokage, he'd been forced to create a completely new set of puppet armor which may have looked like his old one but had almost none of its best features, and he'd been using some other new puppets as well. He wasn't as good with these puppets as he had been with his old ones, and being stuck in fight like this with less than his typical equipment wasn't something he was happy about. It didn't help that Kankuro knew just how dangerous he was. Remember, don't let a single one of his attacks touch you. Every single weapon he has is drenched in poison, and if it hits you, you've got to get to a hospital immediately. Sasori had heard of the kid before. In fact, he'd even heard that Kankuro was thought to be the only person who may surpass him in puppetry. He'd released 2 puppets which were apparently named Crow and Red Ant. They both very well made puppets. Soon Kankuro had them opening their mouths and letting loose about a dozen paper bombs. Opening the mouth on his puppet armor, Sasori released a nozzle along with a jet of fire to take out all of the paper bombs. Once they were gone, Sasori said, "I'll admit, your black style is impressive, but it's no match for my red style." Kankuro smirked, "You say that now, but just give it a second." Sasori knew a smile like that wasn't a good thing. "Just what do you have planned, you third-rate hack?" Kankuro didn't need to say anything. What happened in a moment was answer enough. A massive pair of jaws rose from the ground, clamping on him and crushing his puppet armor with a loud crunch. Kankuro called over, "How do you like being eaten up by a salamander, ya overconfident asshole?" "Nice plan, Shikamaru." Salamander was the name of one of his most powerful puppets, which was aptly named because it was shaped like a giant lizard. It opened its jaw and massive cloud of purple smoke. Kankuro knew what that was in an instant. "It's poison, jump back. Temari, get that stuff the hell out of here." Temari raised her fan up in the air and took a hard swing, focusing her wind chakra to get the cloud of death away from them. Panting heavily, Temari and the rest of them waited for Sasori's next move, as there was clearly no body in the pile of wood that Sasori's armor had left behind. All of them soon heard the sound of some kind of object flying through the air. They looked up to see something barreling towards them at an alarming speed. Naturally, all of them jumped back before whatever it was landed on them, bringing up a massive cloud of dust when it did. To say they were all a little shocked at what they saw would be an understatement. It was Sasori riding on some kind of strange puppet that was as big as Salamander. This puppet had the body and head of a spider but claws and a tail like a scorpion. "Do you like it? I call this big fella arachnophobia." Kankuro didn't even know what to make of it, and I thought my puppets were fucked up. Arachnophobia descended his massive tail upon Shikamaru, who was barely able to dodge it, followed by it slashing its claws at Kankuro and Tenten. It opened its mouth and spit some kind of acid out at Temari, who ducked under with only seconds to spare. Tenten wasn't about to let all of them get hurt, and she was pretty sure she had something that could take it out. She could see that the puppet's biggest weakness is that it was bulky and slow. What she had in mind was perfect for taking it out. She jumped into the air and pulled a scroll out of her pocket, opening it, causing it to spiral above her. There was a large puff of smoke right above Tenten which reveled a giant spiked iron ball. It was connected to her fingers with chakra string, and she pulled it down onto Arachnophobia with all her might. Sasori got off of his puppet as fast as he could, as he didn't feel like being crushed to death. His puppet was destroyed and he screamed, "You worthless little whelp. You'll pay for that." He tore off his cloak and everyone gasped at the sight. Sasori looked to made of puppet parts with a white circle in his chest. "This is how I've kept myself so young. I've become my greatest masterpiece." Temari leaned over to her brother and whispered, "I apologize for any time I ever made fun of your puppets or called them weird. Compared to this guy, you're perfectly normal." Sasori chuckled, "You haven't even seen close to full extent of what I can do. Watch this." Something opened on his back and smoke-filled rushed out. Once it was clear they all saw an army of puppets hovering above them in the sky. There's over 1,000 puppets here. I've taken down entire nations with this attack. Shikamaru figured they only had one hope for beating this attack: everyone keep me out of the line of fire. I think I've only got one shot at this. Everyone formed a circle around him and started to keep the puppets away from Shikamaru. He made his favorite hand seal and got to work. Sasori kept trying to hit them with his puppet, but he quickly felt his moves start to slow down. Before long he was standing completely still, along with his puppets which just floated in the air. Shikamaru smirked, shadow position success. Sasori didn't understand. I'm a puppet, how can you possibly take control of me like this? Shikamaru was a little nervous it wouldn't work, but he had been pretty sure he could pull it off. You still have to have some kind of chakra network for something like your 1,000 puppet technique to work. As long as there's some kind of chakra in it and it has the same number of limbs I do, I can take control of it with my shadow. I'm guessing all we've gotta do is destroy that white thing in your chest and we'll be good to go. Shadow pinning jutsu. Sasori tried to stop him. Wait, we can. It was too late. The shadows had already rose from the ground and sliced through the puppet, including the white circle in the middle. Temari looked at her boyfriend. Wow babe, never knew you were so badass. Shikamaru shrugged. I have my moments. Deidara was up against Gaara, Sakura, and Anko, who were really doing a number on him. The explosives user was have hard time hitting them with his clay bird or bugs because Gaara just kept blocking it with his sand and Sakura kept confusing him with her damn genjutsus. Not to mention you had Anko summoning snakes who kept lunging at him, forcing him to go on the defensive. Deidara's eye was twitching as his inability to blow anything up. You fools are ruining my art. Anko rolled her eyes. Art this, art that, enough with the damn art. Just let us kick you ass already. Deidara made another bird in his hand. You shut up and respect the beauty of sculptors. The bird flew into the air and with a poof grew large enough for Deidara to ride. He jumped on top of it, went straight for Anko. Deidara smirked in victory but stopped when he saw Anko disappear and sand start to rise from the ground. Another fucking genjutsu. Gaara's sand engulfed his bird and attempted to slam it into the ground. Deidara jumped but as soon as he landed to snakes jumped out of the sand and right at him. He sent a few clay birds to force them away but didn't have any time to rest before Gaara's sand was upon him once again. Just before the sand struck Deidara he muttered, "Are you freaking kidding me?" Gaara hit him with the sand and smirked, "Still think you're going to be getting my tailed beast?" The ground began to shake. Much to everyone's surprise, and Deidara burst out of the sound on top of a massive white dragon. This is one of my greatest masterpieces, the C2 dragon. Time to fuck some shit up. The dragon's mouth puffed out and it launched a missile of the white clay at the Gaara and his friends. Gaara slammed his hands on the ground and made as big of a wall of sand as he could. Everything shook when it hit and Sakura gasped, "Man, this guy's stronger than he looks." Gaara got a determined look on his face. He's not the only one who can create a massive creature with his power. Allow me to show you just how powerful my sand can really be. The sand under Gaara's feet began to move and began to take some kind of strange shape. It didn't take long before Gaara was high above the ground riding atop a massive version of Shikaku. You wanted art, pretty boy, well here's your art. Deidara fired 2 more missiles at Gaara, but this time the Shikaku merely slapped them out of the air. The massive creature opened its maw and let loose a massive roar of sand straight at Deidara. He did his best to cover himself to avoid taking too much damage from the hit, but Deidara and his dragon soon found themselves falling from the sky. Gaara didn't waste even a second, raising up Shikaku's foot and stomping on the dragon with all its might. It let out a blood-curdling cry and exploded into pieces. Gaara was thinking he'd won the fight, but he soon found out how wrong he was. Deidara's body began to expand like a balloon and Gaara had a feeling it wasn't for a good reason. He had Shikaku start to take in as much air as he could manage and sucked up the expanding body, trapping it inside the beast's belly. The balloon body popped in Shikaku's stomach, but Gaara didn't feel it do anything else. He muttered to himself, was it just a decoy or what? Suddenly he felt Shikaku to shake and lose all structural integrity. The beast collapsed and Gaara fell to the ground. What in the hell? That's when the real Deidara popped out of the sand. The decoy let out thousands of microscopic explosives. You're lucky you sucked him up before it popped, or you'd all be dead. Gaara stood up. In that case I'll just cover any decoy you make before it can pop, so we're all safe. You'll run out of chakra or clay eventually. Deidara ripped off his shirt, showing some kind of strange black mouth where his heart should have been. You right, I can't beat you. However, I can still take you down with me. I'm going to die in an explosion like I've always dreamed of, and you'll all die with me, along with everyone in 10 square miles of this place. Deidara started stuffed something into the mouth and his body started to disappear, slowly turning into a black mass of some kind. Gaara was getting as much sand as he could to surround the bomb. I've got to do my best to cover this thing or everyone I care about is gonna get hurt. Sakura was terrified. If this bomb was as powerful as Deidara, then even Gaara might not be able to stop it all. Gaara had about a 10-foot wall of sand covering it when it finally went off, and it felt like there was an earthquake when it finally did. Everyone was blown back by the massive explosion, but Gaara's sand managed to absorb most of the blast. All of them were knocked out, but not hurt, yet. Gaara laid unconscious on the ground as what looked to be a clone of everyone's most feared plant man looked over the scene. It grabbed Gaara and sunk back into the ground, taking the poor boy with him. See you in the next one.